Hi there. These comments are for A. I'm just using your initials for privacy purposes, and I am Michael from OTC Online TOEFL and you're one. I'm going to call you a TOEFL writing boot camp and speaking writing boot camp student, right? So I know we're doing a Skype lesson, right? It's actually going to be a Zoom lesson. We're going to meet for an hour after I do this video, but I want to go over the two writing practice tests that you sent me so you can have kind of an estimated score of where you are. Okay, so let's take a look at the first one here. Let me kind of position this where it works better in the screen here. Okay, so the integrated practice test, I don't actually have the reading and listening passage, but I can still tell based on your language use, and you could probably develop the topic a little bit more. So I'm going to put you at 3.0 out of 5 or 20 points out of 30 on this practice test. So I think here when we're looking at the actual rubrics, see if I can explain this in a reasonable manner here. So the overall response is oriented to the task. You're conveying vague, global, unclear, somewhat imprecise connection of the points made in the lecture to points made in the reading. This is another one. Errors of usage and or grammar may be more frequent and may result in noticeably vague, yes, this is a problem, vague expressions or obscured meaning conveyed in conveying ideas and connections. So I think at least those two areas are why I put you in the 3 range, the low 3. Okay, so the question is, what can you do? How do you make the essay better than what it is? Okay, so you have the reading opposes the lecture about the reasons behind the extinction of the dinosaurs. I don't even think you need to say that. I would probably get rid of this. Say something like the author in the reading passage presents 3 reasons toward the, how about 3 reasons to explain why the dinosaurs went extinct. The speaker in the lecture refutes. How about so you don't have to do very much in the beginning, right? So I'm just putting here the author in the reading passage presents 3 reasons to explain why the dinosaurs went extinct, and the speaker in the lecture refutes each assertion made by the author. So that kind of sets up kind of what's going on in the actual reading and listening passage. First, according to the reading passage, and this is good grammar right here. According to the reading passage, that the Iridium that came from the meteoroids when it hit the planet is strong evidence of how the dinosaurs went. You want to change this to extinct. I think you need to develop this a little bit more. So you might say something according to the author. Have found iridium all over the world certain layer of Earth's crust which suggests that a large So I would probably say something like that. Then we have, in contrast, the professor claims that this is not valid because Earth is actually a planet, so we capitalize it because Earth's inner core. I'm going to put also before the verb. Also has iridium beneath it, which leaked down with the magma. Did not necessarily come from outer space. I'm going to say that. Something like this. Now, I haven't read that passage. I'm just using my own knowledge of science to kind of fill in the blanks. The bottom line is I think that you need to develop these paragraphs a bit more to about 100 words. That's usually pretty good. For any kind of academic writing, a 100-word paragraph is a good developed paragraph as long as you focus. Okay, so let's read it one more time. So first, according to the reading passage, that the iridium that came from the meteors when it hit the planet is strong evidence of how the dinosaurs went extinct. No, I think we got to get rid of this connector. So the iridium that came from the meteors when it hit the planet is strong evidence of how dinosaurs went extinct. According to the author, scientists have found iridium all over the world at a certain layer of Earth's crust, which suggests that a large meteor hit the Earth at just about the time that the dinosaurs went extinct. In contrast, the professor claims that this theory is not valid because Earth's inner core also has iridium beneath it, which leaked down with the magma at the time of large earthquakes which have occurred. Therefore, the iridium found in Earth's crust did not necessarily come from outer space. Second, the lecture refers to the next point in the reading. This is a little awkward. You start talking about the reading here, now you're moving to the lecture. I would not do that. Keep it consistent. If you want to talk about the lecture first, that's fine, but do it in every body paragraph so it doesn't become confusing. Second, the reading section mentions that the Ice Age and extreme cold weather is the reason behind the extinction of the dinosaurs. And I'm just kind of developing a little bit more here. Nevertheless, the lecture claims that the time of the dinosaurs was hot and humid, and there is no evidence of glaciers at all. Moreover, he reveals that there is evidence of how about in fact maybe? The speaker reveals that there was evidence of tropical species which flourished around the time of the dinosaurs. In addition, he explains that the sea level raised I'm going to put which here because the problem is you have raised and had melted. You have two different verbs in the main part of the sentence. So in addition, he explains that the sea level which raised in the South Pole had melted back then, which is why it is now icy. I'm going to just clarify that. Okay, so this is actually pretty good. I like this paragraph. It's pretty developed, 117 words, and then we go to the last part. This is where you had some language use issues. You have finally the reading addresses the third point of the reading passage and states. The reading addresses the third point of the reading passage. Doesn't make any sense. We got to get rid of some of that. The listening the reading passage states that the dinosaurs were the evolution of modern birds. How about this is where you really got into trouble. I'm going to say evolved. You can put into modern birds, right? So I think that's going to better express the idea. So the reading passage states that dinosaurs evolved into modern birds. On the other hand, the lecture refutes this argument by stating that there is no way that the dinosaurs We've got to develop this idea a little bit more according the author argues that only the smallest dinosaurs were able to survive the Ice Age, and it was the smaller dinosaurs. Okay, think that's good enough. So again, I'm just developing that first idea a little bit more. Now, I don't know if all this information is accurate, right? I'm just showing you how you can develop the ideas a little bit more. On the other hand, the lecture refutes this argument by stating that there's no way that the dinosaurs how about we'll say the dinosaurs changed into modern birds. Although modern birds are the descendants of birds at the time of the dinosaurs, these birds did not evolve, I'm going to say from. Now, what do we got? Modern dinosaurs. How do we have a modern dinosaur? Dinosaurs are not existing now, right? This is what really got you into trouble with this practice test. When you started to talk about the evolved thing, it kind of means change, and you could not handle that verb. You weren't sure how to handle that. He also explains that the evolution did not occur in the first place. In sum, the reading passage opposes the evolution I don't think you even need to worry about that. In sum, the lecture opposes all the argument presented by the reading passage. Okay, that's good. Okay, so let's take a look at it one more time. Let's see what we have. So the author in the reading passage presents 3 reasons to explain why the dinosaurs went extinct. And the speaker in the lecture refutes each assertion made by the author. First, according to the reading passage, the Iridium that came from the meteoroids when it hit the planet is strong evidence of how the dinosaurs went extinct. According to the author, scientists have found iridium all over the world at a certain layer of Earth's crust, which suggests that a large asteroid hit Earth at just about the time that the dinosaurs went extinct. In contrast, a professor claims that this theory is not valid because Earth's inner core also has iridium beneath it, which leaked down with the magma at the time of large earthquakes which have occurred. Therefore, the iridium found in Earth's crust did not necessarily come from outer space. And then we might put argues the speaker. Maybe put that in there. Okay, then we have second. The reading section mentions that the Ice Age and extreme cold weather is the reason behind the extinction of the dinosaurs. According to this theory, the weather got so cold that the dinosaurs could no longer keep themselves warm, so they froze to death. Nevertheless, the lecture claims that the time of the dinosaurs was hot and humid, and there is no evidence of glaciers at all. In fact, the speaker reveals that there was evidence of tropical species which flourished around the time of the dinosaurs' mighty reign. In addition, he explains that the sea level, which raised in the South Pole, had melted back then, which is why the South Pole is now icy. Finally, the reading passage states that the dinosaurs evolved into modern birds. To support this assertion, the author argues that only the smallest dinosaurs were able to survive the Ice Age, and it was these smaller dinosaurs that evolved into modern birds. On the other hand, the lecture refutes this argument by stating that there is no way that the dinosaurs changed into modern birds. Although modern birds are the descendants of the birds at the time of dinosaurs, these birds did not evolve from dinosaurs. He also explains that evolution did not occur in the first place. In sum, the lecture opposes all the arguments made by the reading passage. Okay, good. So I made some changes to what you wrote. I think that my score is probably pretty accurate. So I developed your topic, and you'll notice here you now have right around 375 words, and that's a little bit more than what you had. So I developed some of your body paragraphs. Okay, so I'm over at my website right now, and the question is, based on your score of 3.0, or about 20 to 21 points out of 30, what are some integrated writing lessons? What can you do right now to help you score higher on this writing task? So that is the question. And I think in the grammar area, let me look at this. I think vocabulary is not too difficult. It seems to get pretty good control of that. Let me look in the grammar part of my course here, see if there's anything. Let me say, I think maybe lesson 26, sentence variety. I'd like to have you take a look at that one. That's probably a pretty good lesson for the grammar area. Maybe lesson 19, passive verbs, kind of review the active versus passive voice. Because sometimes with integrated writing, understanding passive voice can be useful. It can help you express your ideas a little more clearly. I think listening lesson number 1, you can probably do a little bit better job on your note taking. You had some inaccurate or incomplete responses. So I think lesson 1 is important for note taking, and that can help improve your note taking of academic lectures. Check that out. The same thing in the reading passage. I want you to review reading lesson number 1, pre-reading, reading, and note-taking strategies. Because without having the notes, it's hard to do the integrated tasks. So you can check that out. Okay, let's go to the writing section of my course now. Okay, I got to get to the integrated area. And this is where you can do more practice. You'll see at my website, I have about 40 different independent writing practice tests. I have about 43 integrated writing practice tests. That's why I was asking you. I was thinking you might have picked Extinction of the Dinosaurs from mine, but you used TPO instead, right? So my lecture was kind of similar, not exactly the same as the one that you listened to, but it is similar. That's what threw me off a little bit. That's why I sent you that email. But for the integrated writing, I think lesson 9 is very important for you. TOEFL integrated writing strategies. I think lesson 9.2, which method of organization is better for TOEFL integrated writing? I want you to check that lesson out. And I think that's probably good enough for integrated writing. So those are some things I think you can work on right now to improve your integrated writing. I just read your independent writing score, your independent writing practice test also, and I'm scoring you at 3.5 out of 5, 22 points out of 30. You didn't give me exactly the writing prompt, but I'm guessing um, it might be when going on vacation, it's better to use a travel guide. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? That's kind of what it sounds like, right? So you agree with it, and then you explain why. Now, if you go back to the TOEFL IBT rubrics for independent writing, I'm almost putting you at the high 3 area. I think that you have inconsistent facility and sentence formation and word choice that may result in the lack of clarity and occasionally obscure meaning. You have maybe accurate but limited range of syntactic structures and vocabulary. So I think these word choice and sentence structure issues are bringing the writing down a little bit. That's my first impression from reading the essay. I just spent about a minute or so reading the whole thing. But right now, we're going to take 20 or 30 minutes going over the whole thing. I mean, going over in a lot of detail. Okay, so let's take a look at your first paragraph here. Let's bring this on to a new page here. And I'll send you a email with the word version of this. Okay, so your first paragraph is about 89 words, which is not bad. We'll see how many words we have for this. So I think you've developed this one maybe a little bit better than, or maybe not. No, you got 380 words. The good thing is you only use 2 reasons or 2 body paragraphs, and each of those body paragraphs, 137 words, and you have 123. So that's a good sign. Even though you're not writing 450 or 500 words, you're showing the IBT human raters that indeed you can develop a paragraph. Let's look at the first one. I think that you can develop this paragraph a little bit more. You might say, so you might say, nowadays people want to get away from the stresses of their jobs or their daily lives. Then you might say 1. And then we can say this. So what I did is I think that you should raise the topic just a little bit more. And that's what I did here. So now we got 133 words instead of 89. So we have, nowadays people want to get away from the stresses of their jobs or daily lives. One way to accomplish this is by traveling, and those who have the financial means may desire to travel to faraway places in other parts of the world. So I put the and in there. You want to demonstrate that you can write not just simple sentences, but you can write some fairly long sentences. We have therefore traveling has become a most the most popular trend in our era. While people may often debate the usefulness of I'm going to say traveling with group guidance, in my opinion, the tour guide is a vital role when people travel. And I'm going to get rid of that. And let's combine these two sentences. Why break it up? Because he, and let's say can, because you said has become, may often debate, the tour guide is a vital role when people travel because he can facilitate our trips by communicating with the locals, by communicating, and I think you have to say by here, and by saving us plenty of time. So you put by communicating and by saving. So when you have these coordinate conjunctions, this coordinator, this is called parallelism. You want to try to balance both sides of that coordinator by saying by plus gerund and then by plus gerund again. Or you can say by communicating with the locals and saving us, which means you might put this in parentheses. And I don't even think you need to say this. Yeah, that part's not really needed. So make every word count. This is the thesis. What what we did here, this is exactly your thesis. You have the concept of how to develop a sharply focused thesis. Just don't add a repetition after that that's not really needed. To begin with, traveling with a tour guide can make our vacation very easy because he can communicate with the locals and translate our I don't even think you need this. So when traveling to a country that takes a different language that we're not familiar with, our tour, and this is, I let you get away with this in the beginning where you said with group guidance, which is fine, but once you say tour, you're going to have to say guide. So you have to look at guidance as a noun thing and then guide as a noun person. So that's a word choice issue. Our tour guide, I'm going to put, can help us convey our, not massages, our messages and satisfy our demands without any, I'm going to put burdens here, without any burdens. Whereas, now when you use whereas is a subordinator. This is a grammatical error. You have to change this to however as a transition word, right? So usually if you have a word and then you have a comma after it, you don't want what's called a subordinating conjunction. You want a transition word. Okay, if you have any questions, more questions on this, go to Google, type in the keywords TOEFL transition words, and then put better TOEFL scores. You'll find my blog. Again, TOEFL transition words. However, traveling alone might cost us a tremendous amount of energy to explain a single sentence to a local person. For instance, 2 years ago when I traveled to Korea alone, it was so tedious to find a hotel by myself because I could not explain that I wanted it with a great view beside the beach. And I think here I told the agent who was trying to find a hotel for me that I wanted it very close to the ocean. So that I could take walks in the cool ocean air. Told him that I had heard that there were some, let's say, popular shopping plazas by the beach, and that I wanted to visit these legendary stores. Then you can say, however, all of my communications got lost because I'm just showing you how you can develop this idea a little bit more. Therefore, I spent 3 hours looking for. Therefore, I spent 3 hours looking for a native person who knew both languages and who could assist me with calls by talking to the indigenous people. Had I not traveled alone, and I'm going to say here, had I not traveled alone and had I taken, I like how you're using it's called the subject-verb inversion with if. So had I not traveled alone and had I taken a tour guide with me, I would not have wasted this huge amount of energy. So that's probably what I would do. I would probably add a little bit more in there, and that's kind of what I did here. So now we got, over 200 words. So we're showing that we can really develop. So when traveling to a country that takes a different language that we're not familiar with, our tour guide can help us convey our messages and satisfy our demands without any burdens. However, traveling alone might cost us a tremendous amount of energy to explain a single sentence to a local person. For instance, 2 years ago when I traveled to Korea alone, it was so tedious to find a hotel by myself because I could not explain that I wanted it with a great view beside a beach. I told the agent who was trying to find a hotel for me that I wanted it very close to the ocean so I could take walks in the cool ocean air. In addition, I told him that I had heard that there were some popular shopping plazas by the beach and that I wanted to visit these legendary stores. However, all of my communications got lost because the agent barely spoke any English at all. Therefore, I spent 3 hours looking for a native person who knew both languages and who could assist me with calls by talking to the indigenous people. Had I not traveled alone and had I taken a tour guide with me, I would not have wasted this huge amount of energy. And that's it. Now, I got to go teach a linguistics class at Cal State University, San Bernardino here, so I'm going to come back in a few minutes and I will finish this. Let me make a note here. Begin here next. I'm going to make a note to myself here. Okay, let me save this. Okay, I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, I'm back from teaching my English Grammar 1 class at California State University, San Bernardino. Everything's online right now. Okay, let's take a look at this paragraph. So in addition, traveling with tour instructors, I think if you look at what you're saying here, you're saying that it could do the hard work when traveling. All of these because he is, I'm going to say will save us. Let's talk about it more as a possible kind of thing. So traveling with tour instructor will save us a vast amount of time. In a broader context, traveling I think you need to combine these two ideas in a broader context. I'm going to say yeah, traveling with tour instructors will save us a vast amount of time because this person can do the, how about the behind the scenes tasks when traveling, such as finding the best hotel, arranging transportation, and finding historical and entertaining places to visit. And maybe I'm going to use booking here so we don't use finding twice. So such as booking the best deal, the best how about this? The best hotel accommodations, such as booking the best hotel accommodations, arranging transportation, and finding historical and entertaining places to visit. All of that because he is. No, that's actually a fragment there. You don't even need that. This can be just one sentence, believe it or not. For example, last year when I visited South Africa, I hired a tour guide. Yeah, I hired a tour guide to make my trip as organized and as enjoyable as possible. Substantially, with my family or friends. I hired a tour guide to make my trip as organized and as enjoyable as possible. Substantially, our guide our whole job for us, I don't think that's enough. We have to get a little more specific. Our tour guide booked a great hotel for us at a competitive, you can say competitive price, and he conveniently arranged for several excursions. Could see the most famous parts of the country. You might say, instead of having to pay for all of these individual activities, we just paid him the whole expenses of our trip. You can put in one lump sum, and he directed us and put and scheduled and how about created, maybe created a marvelous plan that saved us a myriad amount of time. As a result, we visited the most popular and mysterious places in South America without having to make any arrangements with anyone other than the tour guide. I think we got it. So here, yeah, we got 179 words, not quite as fat as the previous paragraph, but believe me, it is fat enough. It's good. So it's close. So both paragraphs are well developed. I developed them a little bit more to show you how to put that concrete detail in there. So in conclusion, I strongly believe that people should travel with a tour guide because he can make their trip easy and efficient. Moreover, we might discover new places that we would not have known about. Okay, so if we look at what you said here, he can overcome He can help tourists. I think you need to restate your idea. Help tourists overcome the language barrier I strongly believe that people should travel with a tour guide because he can help tourists overcome the language barrier. Focus on visiting the famous attractions and not on you might say an enjoyable experience. So I think we did it. So that's what I would do there, is just make sure when you get to the conclusion, your purpose is to kind of recap or restate the key ideas that you stated in your body paragraphs. Now, I think that you are like 389 words, right? So we developed this a lot more, a little bit more, right? So now we are 560 words. That's plenty. In 2 paragraphs, no doubt. That's very impressive. So I think with your independent writing, there's a few things that you can work on. Generally, you have a good concept of your thesis. Just make sure that you take time to develop each paragraph a bit more, and don't use any generalizations in those body paragraphs other than the topic sentences. Okay, let's take a look at your paragraphs one more time. Nowadays, people want to get away from the stresses of their jobs or daily lives. One way to accomplish this is by traveling, and those who have the financial means may desire to travel to faraway places in other parts of the world. Therefore, traveling has become the most popular trend in our era. While people often may debate the usefulness of traveling with group guidance, in my opinion, the tour guide is a vital role when people travel, because he can facilitate our trip by communicating with the locals and saving us plenty of time. When traveling to a country that takes a different language that we're not familiar with, our tour guide can help us convey the messages and satisfy our demands without any burdens. However, traveling alone might cost us a tremendous amount of energy to explain a single sentence to a local person. For instance, 2 years ago, when I traveled to Korea alone, it was so tedious to find a hotel by myself because I could not explain that I wanted it with a great view beside a beach. I told the agent who was trying to find a hotel for me I wanted it very close to the ocean so I could take walks in the cool ocean breeze or air. In addition, I told him that I had heard there were some popular shopping plazas by the beach and that I wanted to visit these legendary stores. However, all my communications got lost because the agent barely spoke any English at all. Therefore, I spent 3 hours looking for a native person who knew both languages and who could assist me with my calls by talking to the indigenous people. Had I not traveled alone and had I taken a tour guide with me, I would not have wasted this huge amount of energy. In addition, Traveling with tour instructors will save us a vast amount of time because this person can do the behind the scenes tasks when traveling, such as booking the best hotel accommodations, arranging transportation, and finding historical and entertaining places to visit because he is an expert with tourists and locations. For example, last year when I visited South Africa with my family, I hired a tour guide to make my trip as organized and as enjoyable as possible. Substantially, our guide booked a great hotel for us at a competitive price, and he conveniently arranged for several excursions so we could see the most famous parts of the country. Instead of having to pay for all these individual activities, we just paid him the whole expenses of our trip in one lump sum. And he directed us and created a marvelous plan that saved us a myriad amount of time. As a result, we visited the most popular and mysterious places in South Africa without having to make any arrangements with anyone other than the tour guide. In conclusion, I strongly believe that people should travel with a tour guide because he can help tourists overcome the language barrier, and he can help tourists save time so these visitors so these visitors so that these visitors can focus on seeing famous attractions and not on all the intricate planning involved to make the trip as enjoyable or an enjoyable experience. Moreover, we might discover new places that we would not have known about. And I don't know that we want to put that in there. Okay, so that's it. So I think if you make a few changes, especially in terms of developing those particular paragraphs, you can move your score much higher. Okay, so let's take a look at, I'm looking at the online course. Okay, so let's go to the writing. Let me see if there's anything in particular I'd like you to focus on here to help you with your independent writing. And I think there's a few things I'm going to mention right now. Okay, I think take a look at lesson number 1, Toefl Independent Writing Strategies. I think you should take a look at that. That's a really good lesson for you right now. It goes over the organization, the structure, the development, all of that. So take a look at lesson 1. I think lesson 5.6, Writing the Perfect Paragraph. I think that shows you how you can maybe develop the paragraph a bit more with a little bit more telling detail. You can check that out. And then maybe writing the conclusion, lesson number 6. So those are some things I think will also help you with your writing. And one more lesson. This is a good one too. How to make your writing more coherent. It talks about paragraph unity and then 4 cohesive devices you can use to help connect the old and new information together. So I think that's going to also help you with your organization. All right, thank you for doing this writing practice test.